Hello, everyone, and welcome to my RBM breathwork debrief of my breathwork experiences in phase one of my training. So, this is my session 31 out of 36. So, we're really coming to the end of phase one. Breathwork will continue in phase three. So I'll keep doing more of these, but I'll be holding space as well as breathing in stage three. So my intention from last week was to create safety and courage around creating my dreams and desires using my skill set to change people's lives, which was pretty epic for me, I think. Um, and my week was like not too bad, but I found myself being so irritable and I had no patience and um, people were just annoying the shit out of me, particularly my kids this week. Um, I just I just had no patience, no tolerance for stupid, really. Um, my body was sore, like it was random soreness. Like I'd wake up and my neck was stiff and I couldn't move my neck properly. Shoulder in my pain. I had this shoulder in my hip, in my groin, in the inguinal ligament, which was like the most bizarre pain that I just woke up with and had for 2 days and then it disappeared. Um, I also broke out in lots of blemishes, which have already they're already clearing up. Um, and started clearing up in the last couple of days after my breath work, actually. So my body's been really inflamed. My body's been in pain. My tolerance is absolute rubbish. And I had no idea what I wanted my intention to be for this upcoming breathe. And whilst I was kind of getting organized, I was getting organized a little bit earlier than usual because my car was in getting some work done and I wasn't sure how much time I would have um, to go and get it and come back and start the breathwork session. So, um, anyway, it worked out well. I was home by 4:45, cooked dinner, had dinner, and it was while I was cooking dinner that I was like, oh, all of that stuff I was experiencing during the week, the pain, the discomfort, the low tolerance. I thought it was just hormonal stuff, like all that stuff. Maybe that was stuff releasing from my body. Maybe that was me releasing and clearing. This was the material from my breathwork session that needed to be released, and it was like this, oh, well, that, of course, that makes sense now. Um, and Also on Tuesday, the day of the session, I came across this amazing mantra, or quote, affirmation, whatever you want to call it, which ties so much into that intention as well of people love to pay me for what I have to offer. And I thought that was so powerful for me to just have this deep trust and deep knowing that, um, my skill set will change people's lives and people love to pay me for it. So yeah, it was not at all, not at all what I was expecting, but yeah, just that little last piece of maybe that was just everything releasing. Um, yeah, I came into this week not quite knowing actually in my debrief of last week and intention setting for this week, actually just asked me, like what thoughts were going through your head whilst you're experiencing that pain? And I was like, I don't know, it's just annoying and it's frustrating and why is this happening? And kind of the same kind of thoughts of, my irritable experience with my children. They were annoying and frustrating. Um, and also, yeah, my intention for this week's Breathe, I didn't know what I wanted it to be. And I kind of figured it out by the time it was my turn to debrief, and set my intention. And I really thought it felt right to go with this intention again, but slightly modify it. And rather than use my skill set to change other people's lives, I'm using my skill set to change my own life. I have a lot of knowledge. I've got an education in nutritional medicine. I know what to do. I know how to do it. I know why to do it, but I just don't seem to be able to take the action. Like there's something in the way of taking the action to better myself. And so yeah, my intention was around me this time. So my intention written out was I intend to create safety and courage, to create my dreams and desires, to use my skill set to change my life, to meet my needs, prioritize myself and my health consistently, expanding my capacity for self-worth, self-value, and my relationship with myself and my body. And when I started talking through my intention, what was happening in my body is that I just kind of went um, into this feeling of emptiness, like into this feeling of just being on autopilot. Um, and then continuing to talk a little bit more with Jess about my intention and, what's that going to give you and what's that going to give you and what's that going to give you and what's that going to give you. Mm. Talking about the self-worth and the self-value piece. I started to feel like I was more in my body and more in my heart. Like I wasn't fully there, but I was, more there than what I was before. And yeah, I was the last one to do my intention. And then we got settled in for the breathwork session. And in the breathwork session, there was lots of noise and jumping around and things happening outside of the room. And I could feel myself reacting to the noises. Like I could feel that my body was like jumping and on high alert in response to what was happening out there. And it really got me in touch with um, like a younger version of myself, like when I was, 4 or 5 years old. And I guess I was just this incredibly scared little girl, this incredibly scared little girl. Um, Lots of people. If I was somewhere where there was lots of people, I was uncomfortable. If I was somewhere where there was lots of noise, I was uncomfortable. And I'm still like that now. Um, I'm still uncomfortable. Like it brought me to a memory of grabbing onto my mum's leg. Particular memory for me was at a sporting club we spent a lot of time with and just clinging onto my mum's leg for dear life. But I also remember doing this in many other places. My mum and dad were very social people, and so going shopping, my mum would always stop and talk to someone. She always knew someone. And I'd do the same thing. I'd cling onto her leg because who is this person? Like this person's, I don't know this person. I don't like this person. I don't want to know this person. And so it really just put me back in touch with that younger version of myself who was in survival mode, who was just terrified of life and people and really looking for that safety and security from my mum. And like also, not sure how many videos you've watched, but I have shared that my nickname was Mouse because I didn't speak to anyone. Most people didn't even know that I was there. Um, you know, so it really put me back in touch with that time. And yeah, what was happening in my body is what I felt. It was this kind of really interesting experience, and I would not have thought that I'd had anxiety at any point in my life. I would never have described it as anxiety, but I described this as nervous system overload. And trauma is any experience where you can't tolerate nervous system overload. Um, so what was happening in my body when I was going through this experience is my chest, my upper chest felt really heavy, my throat felt really heavy, the back of my neck and the bottom of my skull felt really heavy. And the rest of my body, it felt like a nothingness, but not a nothingness because nothing was happening. It was a nothingness because too much was happening. It was like I'd numbed myself from any experience because it was overwhelming, and I'd disconnected and disassociated with myself, which is where the nothingness came from. Like I was, aware of lots of subtleties that together were too much. And yeah, really, looking back on that time of my life, I can definitely say that was my felt experience. And it felt so alone, really felt so alone. Like looking back at my childhood, I really felt like I had no one. My brothers were older, we had cousins that were older, they had people to play with, and I just felt like I was always on my own. Um, yeah, that's right. I um I remember like just getting like little visions in my breath work of photos of me when I'm a kid, and they all are of me with this blank face and downturned mouth and just like these big eyes. And I'm always just like, you know, so many photos of me looking like that. Um, and really just, yeah, getting a bit more in touch with like that's the face of someone who is frightened, like, why are you talking to me? Why are you looking at me? What do you want? Um, the heaviness in the back of my neck was starting to get a bit uncomfortable, and I thought, oh, I'll dialogue to myself. And so I started, and um, that that uncomfortable feeling kind of dissipated, but made the surrounding discomfort more prominent. But in that process, I was also like having this argument with myself in my head of like, why don't you just put your hand up and dialogue with one of the facilitators? Like, I don't need to put my hand up and dialogue with the facilitator because I already got this response. Like, why don't you just do that? Because I don't need to do that. And so I was having this little argument with myself of, like not wanting to let anyone in. And I stayed with this for a little bit. I didn't want to make it wrong, but I just wanted to be in that experience. And then I put my feet up on the floor and changed my position a little bit. I put my feet up on the floor and I really pushed my back into the floor. And then one of the other ladies started dialoguing with one of the facilitators. And the body position I was in felt incredibly grounding for me. And interestingly, um, the dialoguing experience was very much um, similar to my experience, in which her opening thing was, like I have to choose between losing myself um, to stay connected with people, and that really resonated with me, like. In my survival mode, my safety was my mum, and I had to disconnect from myself to maintain that safety piece. So yeah, just listening to her dialogue was like so um, valuable to me because it was so much like my experience. Um, And, there were moments where she was saying about how she felt so lost and alone. And again, that too was my experience. I was surrounded by people and felt so alone forever throughout my life. Um, only letting people in a certain amount, um, out of fear that something would happen to me. So really, even though I have so many people in my life, I'm not letting anyone in. And it was an interesting experience. As I said, like my body position felt really grounding, and the surrounding noise out the room was still happening, but my body wasn't responding in that kind of jerky, on alert kind of way. I felt really grounded and like I was building on my own inner security and my own inner safety, listening to her, talking through her dialoguing experience and just relating so much to that. Um, I also had this, once that dialogue experience finished, I had this idea, this vision in my head of the body position I wanted to move into. And this is also a pattern in life for me. Like it was a dream, a desire. This body position was the dream, the desire that I wanted to achieve. And like I couldn't just roll over and get there. Like I had to kind of work my way to that position. And so I eventually moved to my side. And it was like, again, I was just arguing with myself of like, why don't you just go into that position? Why are you here? Why did you stop? Why don't you just continue to roll over? I really wanted to go into a child's pose. It's like, why don't you just roll over? I'm like arguing with myself of why I just went from my back to my side. Like, what are you doing? Why are you here? Why don't you go any further? And it was like, well, this is safe. I'm going to stay here and going to stay here as long as I want to. And so I stayed in that position for a little while, even though that position was not comfortable. I couldn't move. Um, and then I eventually turned again onto my stomach after a little bit. And I also noticed throughout this period, like I wasn't breathing properly. I wasn't able to breathe fully. I was breathing in a really shallow manner. And um, yeah, even though what the position I was in wasn't comfortable, it was like it felt safe. It felt safe. So yeah, so I moved from my side onto my stomach. And again, I was like, come on, just keep going. Just go into that child's pose. And you know, it was just like, no, absolutely not, can't do it. Um, I just kept making these little micro movements to try and get myself more comfortable. Nothing was comfortable, but I still couldn't get myself to that place of where I wanted to be. I was like, no, this is safe, can't go any further. And it was very frustrating and annoying. And I stayed in this place of being in discomfort, making little micro moves to try and make it a little bit more comfortable, but never going to that place that I wanted to be, to that body position that I wanted to be. And I also remember feeling like I was on my stomach with my arms like this, feeling like even though I was so close to the position that I wanted to be in, all I had to do was push my body back onto my legs. I felt further away from what I wanted than what I did when I was laying on my back. And it was a really interesting experience because I was so close from where I wanted to be, and yet I felt so far away. And there are many moments in life where I also feel that, you know, like, as I said, this is a pattern for me. Like, I take a little step. It's like, now I have to stay here. This is safe. I'm going to stay here. And then I eventually get the courage to take another step. And I was like, this is as far as I go right now. I have to stay here until it's comfortable. It's not going to be comfortable because it's not what I want, you know, and because you're not getting to where you know, it doesn't feel like you're getting to where you want to go. It feels like, well, what am I even doing? Should I just give up? And most of the time I do. So, yeah, it was just this kind of interesting awareness of patterns, excuse me, of patterns that I have. And um, right at the very, very, very end. And again, like I said, I was just arguing with myself, like, why aren't you doing this? Just do it. Why aren't you doing this? Right at the very, very end, just before Jess called the 5 minute warning. And I was very conscious at this point in time because I was so uncomfortable. Um, right at the very end, I had this like aha moment. And the reason why I wasn't just going into that position that I wanted to go into was if I have what I want, will I lose everything around me? If I have what I want, will I lose connection with everyone? So it's this real fear connected to like outer safety, connected to the people around me, the safety of the people around me. If I have what I want, will I lose all of those people? And yeah, it was this kind of real light bulb moment for me. Um, And then, yeah, as soon as Jess called the 5 minutes, I was like, well, eyes are open. I'm done here. But finishing with that feeling of if I have what I want, I will lose everything. It really felt uncomfortable. I felt really heavy in my body. I felt really tired, unsettled. Like I had this kind of like stomach ache. I was really uncomfortable in my neck, really uncomfortable in the back of my neck because, as I said, I was lying like this. And in my um, lower back. And yeah, it really wasn't until I was kind of talking through my experience that, those feelings passed because. Yeah, I was feeling like, yeah, I'm not complete. Like I'm complete with this breathe, but I'm not complete with this process. And then once I did my debrief with Jess, I really felt, yeah, okay, I feel better now. I feel complete with my process. You know, I'm done for now. And yeah, like so much happened. So much happened, so much awareness, so much insight um to my experience in life. um, and really getting in touch with the fear, the survival mode, the fear, the loss of connection, um, or the feared loss of connection. Um, so yeah, that was a pretty interesting breathe for me this week. So yeah, that was my breathe number 31. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for following um, my experience. And I will see you in the next video. So bye for now.